Welcome to the Minimalist Educator Podcast, where the focus is on a less is more approach to education. Join your hosts, Christine Arnold and Tammy Musiałowski, authors of The Minimalist Teacher and Your School Leadership Edit, a minimalist approach to rethinking your school ecosystem, each week as they explore practical ways to simplify your work, sharpen your focus, and amplify what matters most so you can teach and lead with greater clarity, purpose, and joy.
In this week's episode, we are joined once again by Chris Fenning to talk to us about effective meetings. His pair down pointer is the TPO formula as a game changer. Stay tuned to find out more. Chris Fenning helps professionals master their communication at work, whether it's helping experts talk to non-experts, teams talk to executives, or simply being able to start a message clearly. Chris's practical methods are used in organizations like Google, JP Morgan, and NATO, and have appeared in the Harvard Business Review. He's also the author of multiple award-winning books on communication and training that have sold more than 100,000 copies. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. We are welcoming back today Chris Fenning. Welcome, Chris. What is that, Chris?
Well, whatever you want to call me, I'm very pleased to be here.
Fantastic. Chris, we're really excited to talk to you today because you have a new book about meetings, effective meetings, and it is a question that goes on, not just in education, but in other fields as well. Like, do we have to have all of these meetings? So I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic today. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to this book?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'm sure that listeners have heard the word meetings and thought, yes, this is exciting. This is the topic I want to get into. But probably not because it's a fun topic, but because it's so painful. The idea of having another meeting, even just saying those words, makes me feel a bit, oh, really? Do we have to? And that is one of the reasons that I wrote this book. So meetings are a core part of all jobs, no matter what the job is. Someone who works at a checkout or a cashier will have team meetings or meetings with the other staff and employees. People in schools have meetings outside of their classroom. And of course, in business, some of the stats say sort of 35% of the average white-collar worker their time is spent in meetings each week. So there's a lot of meetings. There are a lot of complaints about meetings. And I felt that the material that was available, a lot of it is good, but there wasn't one resource that tackled the fundamental things for all meetings, rather than just focusing on very specific types. So I put a book together that is a short, practical guide to how to make meetings shorter and actually deliver what they're meant to.
I know this would certainly have been helpful when I was teaching in New York, because I felt like a lot of the meetings we would have there at my school, just the drudgery, it felt like. And, not all meetings were equal or the same, right? But that initial anticipation anxiety kind of like, oh, we're having another meeting. And a lot of times they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, which was great.
That is great.
Yeah. But then how do you kind of, if you know that you need to have some meetings, how do you reduce that kind of anxiety for people? Like, this isn't going to be as bad as you think it is, without saying that.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to think about meetings. So before I sort of jump into an answer on that, can you give an example? Is there one type of meeting that really stands out for you that drove that anxiety?
Our faculty meetings that we would have each Monday, we kind of had initially a flow. Like the first Monday would be this, the second Monday would be this, third, fourth. And it was supposed to be kind of on a rotational cycle, but it didn't always end up that way, because then the district would present something to schools and then the principal would have to bring in that information. So it was kind of, sometimes those surprises that we weren't expecting. So I definitely liked that there was going to be some kind of routine to knowing what the thing that was going to be expected. But then it was like the surprises that were not always great surprises that come to you at the last minute that just have to be kind of thrown into the mix. But it was usually those faculty, those meetings that you knew you were going to have happen on a weekly basis.
The recurring meeting that sets out with a grand or clear purpose and ends up, as you say, either being derailed by something new that's come in or just going through the motions. So a second question for you is what was the purpose of those meetings, and what were they meant to produce? What was the output that you would leave with?
So the output depended on the week. So sometimes if we were taking in information from the district, let's say if there was a new initiative or something we had to learn, we might have something to go and do, like read this article and, bring back questions or something like that for the next meeting. Sometimes we looked at what was happening in the school. So we would go into committees and have to do our planning for whatever else was happening in the school. I'm trying to think what was another one that we would often have. Drawing a blank, because our PLC meetings were separate. But yeah, so that gives you an idea.
All right, so using those two examples, it sounds as though that weekly meeting was a creator of more work for you after that meeting. So whenever you would go into it, you wouldn't necessarily know what the topic was going to be because it might be a surprise. And no matter what the topic was, planned or surprise, you were going to have to do more work afterwards. Do you think that might have been a bit of a driver of why you thought, oh, I don't want to go to that meeting?
Probably, yes.
Okay. And that is a really common, sort of classic example of why meetings with good intentions can have that draining effect before you even go in. If we don't know what's coming, how do we know how to prepare? And if we know that meeting will consistently generate other work for us, combining that with the surprise if we don't know what the topic is, you're already mentally thinking, well, I'm at capacity in my week. How am I going to fit something else in? And then trying to run through, even subconsciously, what are the possible things that could now come in and disrupt my week? We, as people, tend to imagine the worst. And all of that does not set you up for yes, let's have a productive, exciting meeting. And I do want to challenge I'm not challenging you, I want to challenge the person who was running these sessions. Being surprised by something that comes in, nobody should be surprised in the meeting because there is always time beforehand to be told what it is. Even if it's only 30 minutes or an hour before the meeting, saying, hey, folks, there's a new topic, it's this. That gives you at least a bit of time to mentally process. When you go into the meeting and someone says, something happened on Friday, well, you could have told us on Friday so that we had time to at least mentally prepare ourselves for the meeting on Monday. And it's unfortunate, but it's very easy to fix. Whoever is leading the meeting, if there is a change from the proposed purpose intent or the topic, the purpose, and the desired output, any of those things change prior to the meeting, let people know with as much notice as possible.
Yeah, it brings back our previous conversations about communication, Chris. This being really clear with what you're doing is so important for sure. I'm thinking about those meetings that you have that are there mainly to disseminate information. And I feel like that's often the one that people say, this could have been an email, that sort of thing. But I also know that not everybody will read the email or read it thoroughly enough to pick it up. So, but then you also have very tired people at the end of the day. They might not be picking everything up in the meeting as well. So can you tell us a little bit, like, how do we get the right amount of information, the right structure, so that we are not, draining the life out of everybody, but actually getting the message across that we need to get across?
Yeah, absolutely. And draining is the word that's come up, I don't know, 5 times already in the conversation, because that's how bad meetings make us feel. Good meetings don't drain us. They can take energy, but they shouldn't leave us feeling drained. So when it comes to information only meetings, you said that could have been an email. Well, you also listed the problem of not everyone reads the emails, and we think, oh goodness, I don't want another email as well. So here's the way to make sure that the information is correct in terms of volume and the method of delivering it. And it's when you set up your meeting, you need to ask yourself, what are people going to do actively do with this information I'm sharing. Let's say the school board has passed down some new information, and so the head of school is sharing it with the staff. So what? What are they meant to do in response? What is the activity? What is the interaction? Do you want to share the info and then have a conversation to allow people to ask questions? Is it a time for debate? Do you want people to identify the actions they're going to take as a result of that information? There should always be something done with the information. And if there isn't, don't deliver it in a meeting. If the purpose is just to deliver something out, send it in another method. Now, you mentioned email is one of them. Okay, not everyone reads an email, but there are other ways we could do it. Send a voice note, record a short video, and there are tons of free, easy to use tools. Like Loom is one. You can just do it online and send a 3 to 5 minute video. Change the medium so that people can consume it in a way that they like on their own schedule, and then they get that information. And I do this quite often. If I follow up with people after a workshop, I'll record a short video, but I'll also have a link for listen to the audio, because some people might want to listen while they're driving or doing the ironing or something else. And the transcript will come out as a text. I record the video in a couple of button clicks. AI tools and other automation means I can turn the video into audio and into text. 3 different mediums. People can choose the one that works for them, and they can consume it in their own time. And there always needs to be a, here's what you do with that information next. Doesn't have to be interactive, but if I want them to consider it and how it applies to their work, give them that action. But I don't need to gather 30 people together so they all hear the message at the same time. But I do need to give them the I need to give them the message and tell them when it needs to be listened to, read by, or acted on.
Yeah, that's such a critical piece. And it connects very closely to working with teachers, honestly. Like, how are people engaging with the content that you're presenting to them? Because otherwise, it just becomes like this passive piece of information, right? Like, here's some information. You're not told what to do with it. Do I just read it? Do I have to do something with it? So, like, being clear on that and knowing what the purpose is helps
Yeah.
everyone.
That's the word that makes all meetings better. Purpose is the core of a meeting. There are 3 words in a very simple framework that affects every part of practically every meeting. And that's when you're planning it, when you go into it, when you're inviting people to your meeting, the topic must be clear, the purpose of the meeting must be clear, and it must be obvious what output will be produced. Is it a decision? Is it a list of ideas? Is it a prioritized something? Is it a response, a solution to a problem? Is it an action to set up a committee to do something, however much we don't want to set up more committees? But there should be a clear topic, purpose, and output so that you can structure that meeting, invite the right people, have the right activities, and stay on track. Those 3 words make every meeting better.
I noticed sorry, Christine, I probably took your thoughts, but I was looking through some pieces of your book, and I noticed that you had highlighted 5 Ps. One of them was purpose. Was that for this book? Maybe I was looking in the wrong book. Do you have 5?
I don't have a 5P process in this one. No, it's TPO is the core piece of this. So the topic, purpose, output. But I am intrigued what the 5Ps might be.
Yeah, it's making me wonder now, because now I can't find where it was. And I'm like, oh, look at us using Ps all the time. But like, we have our triple P, you've got a 5 Ps, but maybe it was a different book.
People, place, purpose, the product, and there's another 5P method for meetings. It's not mine. I believe it says, hopefully I haven't butchered it, but I'm going to dig into my notes and find out. I have a stack of other meeting books because there's a lot of great material on this topic. By no means did I write anything groundbreaking when it comes to meetings. It's a well-covered topic. And there are some really, really good books out there and other sources, usually specific to particular meeting types. If you want to run a half-day workshop, or if you want to run a problem-solving meeting, there are some really good books that go deep into those very specific topics. what I'm hoping to do, and what I get the feedback that has worked, is I've provided a set of fundamental steps people can take to make any meeting type better. Whether it's a one-to-one between two staff members, whether it's that weekly team or faculty meeting, or anything else, planning the strategy for next year. How do we plan the Christmas party? All of those meeting types have some fundamental rules that can make them better and not draining and not make us feel, oh, that's just space on my calendar.
So, Chris, I have been a participant, like an audience member, and a facilitator of meetings that have completely gone off the rails for a variety of different purposes. And it's quite an uncomfortable feeling, both as a person in the audience watching it happening, knowing that it's going off track, but also as a facilitator, knowing that you are trying to get something done and now we're on a different track. So from both points of view, is there anything that we can do to bring us back without being offensive or rude to anybody, but make sure that we're still getting to the purpose of the meeting?
Yes, there are definitely things we can do. And the great thing is they're quite simple. So there are a number of scripts in the book for people who are saying, well, what do I actually say in the situation? I've detailed out very short scripts. When I say detailed, it makes it seem like it's long, but there are some very short, simple scripts that people can use in situations like somebody's dominating the conversation. The group can't seem to move on from a topic. Somebody keeps interrupting. What do you do in each of those situations? And I will share a little bit about how you can do those in a moment. But before that, I want to address the point you made about being the leader or a participant and how uncomfortable it is. And a common misconception is that it is the leader's responsibility to keep a meeting on track. And the reason that's a misconception is, yes, the leader has some responsibility to do that. They should be focused on keeping things on track. However, every person in a meeting is also responsible for not only keeping things on track for themselves, don't introduce a tangent, stay on topic, but they also have the ability to bring a meeting back on track, even if they're not leading it, and it can be done politely. And I've seen this done where interns have helped bring meetings back on track when there are fairly senior leaders in the room as well. And here's how to do it. Whatever the situation is, let's take the category of the conversation has gone off track, whether it's too detailed or it's moved away from the core purpose of the meeting. The way to bring it back on track as a leader or as a participant is to first recognize when the conversation is going in the wrong direction. So all conversations twist and turn, totally natural. There's never a straight line between the beginning of a meeting and the end, and everything that is said is directly on that path. It doesn't work that way. But if you're paying attention to the conversation and thinking, is this getting us closer to that output that we need? Is this still on track with the purpose? As soon as you feel that it's not, you ask a question. And ask, hey folks, is the thing we're currently talking about, is it relevant to and helping us achieve the output for this meeting? And by asking a question, one of a few things is going to happen. Either you're going to be told, yes, it does relate, and here's how, which is great. You've learned a thing. Okay, great. Didn't realize that. Thank you very much. Or the room and the people in the room are going to realize they're going off track and say, oh, yep, no, it's not connected. And they'll self-adjust. And you've done it without telling anyone and without assuming that it's not relevant. So asking a simple question and let the person who's speaking or the group tell you how what they're talking about is directly related to producing that purpose, of achieving the purpose and producing the output for the meeting.
That's very helpful because conversations are just so twisty-turny. And even on our podcast, we can go on our tangents and then come back to something, but just recognizing, that a question sometimes can just really recenter us. And thank you for saying too, that it's everybody's responsibility to take part in that and recognize that, okay, we're getting off track here. What are some other tips or techniques that you would recommend for people who have to attend a lot of meetings, so they don't necessarily run them, but they're in a lot of meetings, and you can kind of feel sour about that sometimes, where it's like, okay, I know that this is an important meeting, so like you understand that it's purposeful, but are there some things that you would recommend to people just to kind of maybe not keep the energy high, but like just keep a level head about, okay, I'm going to be a good person in this meeting. I'm not going to roll my eyes. I'm not going to do those things that I feel like I want to do internally, but I'm just going to stay focused.
Ah, yes, staying focused and contributing. There's some great stats on what people do during meetings, particularly virtual and online meetings, where 35% of people admit to shopping online. That's what they're doing. Shopping online during a meeting. Could you imagine doing that in person? You've got an in-person meeting, and then out comes a laptop, open up whichever you're shopping, wherever you're shopping, and just buying stuff. We wouldn't do it in person, but we do it quite a lot virtually. And while it's easier to do it virtually because there's less social pressure, people can't see our screen, the underlying cause is the thing that will address your question. The underlying cause of things like I'm scrolling social media, I'm shopping, I'm doing other things, is because I don't either understand or agree that I can actively contribute to the meeting. If somebody knows that they need to and can actively contribute to the purpose and the output, they will pay more attention unless they are really exhausted or have something else that's a higher priority. And so many times we invite people to meetings because it might be, they might be interested, or I think they could contribute. And that is setting a meeting up for failure and making people attend things they don't need to. So as the person planning the meeting, we need to be intentional for every single person that we invite. What will they do to contribute to the purpose and help produce this output? And here's what we can do as individuals when we get invited to lots of meetings. And I lived this as a project manager and a leader in a project department for many years. We would have times where there were up to 5 meetings booked for the same time, and we'd have to choose between them. And part of that choice comes from, do I understand the contribution that I will make? And if I don't, I need to ask. And I don't ask in the open during the beginning of the meeting, like, hey, Tammy, why did you invite me to this? I don't see any purpose for me. That's not particularly great. But before the meeting, hi, Tammy, I just want to check what I'm contributing to. And I'm not clear on what the purpose is. Can you clarify that for me? If we take that responsibility for ourselves and we get clear on how we can contribute, then we are much more likely to be engaged and our energy would be up because we know that what we're doing is relevant. That's how we do it.
That's awesome. I think I default back to I'll just take notes, but that would be so much more helpful to actually see the relevance and the purpose rather than just, I'll take the notes today. Chris, I feel like you've given me so much hope about what meetings could be like. I feel really hopeful now, and I want to dive further into the book and have more of a look at it to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a participant and as a facilitator to have really great meetings. So thank you so much. But I know as a returning guest, that we ask for a pair down pointer before we wrap up our episodes. Do you have a great pair down pointer today?
Yes, the one takeaway from this is to make everything better in all meetings is whether you're sending an invitation or you're receiving an invitation, if the topic, the purpose, and the output aren't clear, ask. If you're receiving it, ask. If you're writing the invitation, put them in. Topic, purpose, and output. Those things will help you plan a good meeting, introduce a good meeting, run a good meeting.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love that the tip is simple. It's something I can do very easily, and I will write that acronym down when I'm doing my planning so that I stay focused. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for having me.
This episode is sponsored by Plan Z Education Services, supporting educators with forward-thinking professional learning that puts both student impact and teacher wellness at the centre. Driven by a vision to teach less, impact more, they help educators find purpose, prioritise what matters, and simplify their practice. Learn more at planzeducation.com.
Thank you for listening to the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Join Christine and Tammy and guests again next time for more conversations about how to simplify and clarify the responsibilities and tasks in your role. If today's episode helped you rethink, reimagine, reduce, or realign something in your practice, share it in a comment or with a colleague. For resources and updates, visit planzeducation.com and subscribe to receive weekly emails. Until next time, keep it simple and stay intentional.